Okay, everybody, welcome in. This is our virtual machine where we're going to go out and download the SetupBuilder trial edition and some other files that are nice to haves but are not required. As we can see, I'm on Windows XP and I've just done minor little edits and gotten this thing mostly up to date. So let's do it. Jump out on the web. Wait for Firefox to get its head on straight. Okay, booyah, awesome. And we're going to head over to lendersoft.com. Enter. Wait for this to load. Knowing my bad luck, it probably won't. There it goes, awesome. And we're going to go over to... Never remember where this is at on their website. I'm going to go to SetupBuilder. And there should be a download somewhere. Downloads right there. So you go to SetupBuilder and you go to downloads. Now this may change by the time you're seeing this video. Now they offer a junk load of downloads here. And we're going to zoom in on this using my OS level zoom to kind of break this page down. Okay, and what we want is the developer edition free trial. And this is going to go, actually, let's not do it that way. Let's right click on it. Where this is at. Save link as. Okay. And I want to put it in my SB10 trial files. Awesome. And then while we're here, we will download a few other little nice to haves, including the PDF manual. That way it's accessible regardless. The CHM online help, which is usually up to date, but I still get this anyway. And the example files. And I should have this floating around here somewhere. No, my bad luck. And the Learning SetupBuilder Part 1, which is a great little resource that has all manner of additional documentation, supporting documentation. This was written by, I believe their name is Jane Fleming. Don't quote me on that here, gang. And so that way this just wouldn't go directly to a generic downloads folder, and I knew where it was. That's why I was doing the right click save as thing. And you'll notice that for the things you would want, they will have the evaluation version. If you purchased a license for Lendersoft SetupBuilder, if you purchased one of these, you'll see where it says licensed right here. This is actually a protected access download. Lendersoft will email you a name and password and serial number and maintenance key and all that other fun stuff once you've purchased the product. But because we are evaluating, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go out to our SetupBuilder trial files. And we are going to firstly install this one here. Yes, we want to run it. Here we go. Next, accept the terms. Next, go ahead and leave the defaults. Maybe. and next that. If you were a licensed SetupBuilder user, it goes next. Once this loads, it goes next, agree, check your boxes, setup path, and then it'll ask you for your name and all that type of information, and as well as your maintenance key, which is all provided by Lindersoft in that email you got. Then we are going to install us the CHM manual. Run that. And then once you install the SetupBuilder itself, you don't need to do this in this order. In fact, the PDF manual and the CHM manual are just little nice to haves, especially because they update their documentation quite frequently sometimes. Then we will install Learning SetupBuilder Part 1, which I'll show you how to access later on in this here video. No, we don't want to launch that just now. And we will install the examples. Oops, or not. Okay. Okay, and boom. Okay, so everything's where it needs to be. It's all installed. At this point, we can go ahead and trash our trial files installation. And it put a nice icon on the desktop like we asked it to. And all the stuff we need is right here in the start menu as well. So let's go ahead and launch this. First time you do this, it will complain at you that it is a trial version. I encourage you to read this. Let's zoom in on this just for fun. So I can read it because I don't remember this. Thank you for following restrictions. Okay, so basically what this means is that with the trial version, the setups, once they're compiled, will go after 14 days. And you're not supposed to distribute those. If you want to distribute it and really like the product, go out and buy it. That's what I did. So we're going to okay that. And this is what you're presented with. That first thing is, I believe this is called the start screen. Along the left-hand side, you've got your project list, release notes, access to the SetupBuilder online community. You can create a new project, open an existing project, or browse the samples. That's why we installed that. Some useful help links. The redistributable manager, which we will cover in a little bit. You can check for updates and check for any help updates. You can boom, hit this button here for a new project, and it'll ask you what you want to call it. Actually, no, that's open a project. My bad. I always jack that up. Open a project, new project. If you go to new project, you get quite a list here. Just a sec. You get quite a list here. Just an empty project, empty template project, meaning you can create something that just has the bare bones and then reuse it. Blank script, meaning there's no pre-filled answers. Web update project, include scripts, and uninstall include script. I do believe that the web update project and the uninstall include script are developer edition only features. Do not quote me on that, guys. Along the top, you've got your pretty standard issue menu bar with a lot of the functions grayed out because we're on the start screen. File menu has pretty standard fare, new, open. Let's zoom in on this so I can actually read the text a bit better. So under file, you've got your pretty standard fare, open, save as, new project, save. You can even export out to a zip. You can export your scripts out as text files, so you can copy, paste, save the compiler output to a file, validate your script structure. You can even trash the project file, recent projects list, print script, edit, or exit. Under edits, pretty standard fare, cut, copy, paste. View will allow you to navigate the IDE. Project, build, debug. We will actually get into what these things do when we create the project. Tools, create zip archive. That is a developer only feature. Calculate GID, calculate CRC32, which is basically a fingerprint for any file to make sure that it hasn't been corrupted. Generate serial number list. I know that's a developer edition only. Compare folders and options where you can change things around. We will be looking at that options dialog here shortly. And help. Why did I have us download the Learning Setup Builder package and the PDF manual and get the help files? Why did I have us do that and install those? Because now they're accessible from here. Learning Setup Builder, PDF manual, and direct links to the LenderSoft homepage, download page, order page, etc., along with the About Setup Builder and the ability to check for various updates. That is, that's an overview. And this help documentation, both the Learning Setup Builder and the application's own built-in help, are quite extensive. I mean, seriously, guys, this is, if you ever wanted to learn Setup Builder, you can read this from end to end, and it's very, very informative, as is this Learning Setup Builder here, which has some really cool stuff in it. I'm going to quit that. And so let's go through our options real quick on the tools menu so we can kind of get an idea of what's going on here. Let's do this. Let's create a new project. Let's go new project. Then we go, and let's zoom in on this so I can see what I'm doing. New project, empty project. It's going to pop up a save box. What the heck in High Linux do you want to call this thing? And I'm going to go ahead and call this your new project 1. That's fine. And when you first do this, it'll give you a wizard. You can turn this off if you're familiar enough. Or if you just don't want to do the wizard, you can cancel it. If we next this, it'll ask us for our company name, our application name that we're installing, a version number, and our website. I'll just go ahead and leave these at default for demonstration purposes. Where do you want to stick it? By default, it will put it in program files directory, which will default, which this %program files dir % is a runtime variable. It will resolve itself. So if the user has their program files folder in D program files, it will resolve to D program files. If it's in C program files, like most normal people, it will resolve to C program files or C program files x86. And your product name, which is also a, I believe that's a compiler variable. Don't quote me on that. But this will resolve as well to whatever our product name was back here. Okay, so let's... And I've gone ahead and said my company name is Winx Club. So, next. Do we want to display a license agreement text? Yes or no? And if so, specify it. And do we want to prompt our users for their name and serial number and stuff like that? We'll go ahead and say no. We can add these features later if we want to. Then we next and finish. And this is what you're presented with. Along the left-hand side is the visualizer categories that will allow you to easily switch, and as you make changes in these areas here, the script, which looks intimidating at first, will auto update as you make changes in these visualizers where you check boxes and drag things around and do those things rather than having to come out here in the script editor and monkey about with this. But there are some cool things you can do with this should you need to, or should the time come for it, which we will be covering some of those in the video here. Now, since we've got our project up here, this toolbar you notice has changed. You've got back and forward buttons that will step you up or down the list of visualizers. You've got a compile button. You can test this, which will basically compile the setup and walk you through it, but no actual changes will be committed. It's just to visually test through the dialog sequence. Run, which will actually do the changes. Open release folder. You can have multiple releases based on one single setup project. And debug, meaning you can step through this line by line by line, and that way if something goes horribly wrong. And on the menu bar up here, now that we've got a project, under View, you can previous next, or you can see that these visualizers are grouped into folders. They're grouped into little submenus here. You can jump directly to the script editor or check out the compiler output if you dismissed it or did something along those lines. Under Project, a lot of the task automation stuff, such as importing zip archives and doing, I believe, don't quote me on this, a dynamic scan. I could be wrong about that. Believe these are developer edition functions. I'd have to go look. Let's see here. And we've got some project settings here. Under Build, you can build the installer, you can test the installer. You can, if you set it up correctly, just spit your installer after it's been built right out to an FTP server for download. And you can tweak how the compiler is done and all that good stuff. Debug obviously has your debugger commands in it. And let's see here. Creating serial number lists as well as doing subscription keys are both developer edition only functions, and obviously the help menu. So that is a basic walkthrough of what the IDE looks like and its various components and tools. We're going to actually jump into more detail about what some of these visualizers do when we start creating our project. So don't worry, I'm not leaving you out to dry by not telling you what half this stuff is. We're going to cover it in other videos where we can focus a little more in depth. So go ahead and get your trial version. If you'd like to follow along and use your own files, and we'll see what happens. So that's it. I'm out of here for this video, and we will talk again in the next one when we start building our project from the ground up. Oh, and one more thing. I should have not said that just yet. Yes. One more thing here on this. Oh, chiz. Okay. Let me just open up one of these examples for convenience sake here. One more little thing, and we're going to talk about these is you can actually disable these little pop-outs out here that have a flyout script editor and flyout task pane. Let's real quick talk about the options here. And I'm going to zoom in on this as we talk about them so I can actually see what I'm doing. Otherwise, this is not going to end well for me. Okay, IDE options. Start maximized and load all feature levels by default. I always leave those on. I never do prompt to save. Always make a project backup copy, and I disable these pop-outs over here. And you can disable the new project wizard if you are developing for Clarion and installing an application that was developed using Clarion. You want to turn this on, and when you get your full license, this when your maintenance, your support, and your updates expire, this will pop up a little thing, but you can turn that off if you so desire. And if you don't want it to save the last place you were when you were doing your files and folders, check this one. And I can never remember what these last two do, let's be honest. And at startup, you can do the start page, or you can automatically jump back into your last project, whatever that was. Under compiler, I always leave this, which is checked by default. Use Smart Text Resource Linker turned on. You can minimize on compile or run, especially if it takes forever to do your stuff. Disable the build report generation. You can automatically open up Explorer after it's done compiling. You can not have it ask you before it uploads anything, and you can clean up after itself for the temporary files and things of that nature. Preferences, file replacement options, really depends on your preferences. Always, never. Check version, then date and time. Check the date and time only. Check the CRC. And start screen is default. I usually have it as general information because I usually like to work from the top down. Automatically add self-registration if you're working with DLLs, EXEs, OCXs that do self-register. This would be a good thing to check. And this is a good one to check, especially if you're distributing your stuff over the internet. That way, God forbid, somebody's connection drops while it downloads, and then you run it. This will actually check itself for bugs, and if it doesn't match, if the fingerprint doesn't match, that installer will refuse to run and say, hey, you've got possibly a corrupted download. I always turn this on, so it's on by default. Project location, if you don't want to save it in your default, which for me is C, documents and settings, Carly, my documents, SetupBuilder projects. Code signing, always good to have a code signing certificate, and this is where you go to set this stuff up. I don't. Web updates, how often do you want it to check for updates? If you have an active subscription, how often do you want it to check for updates? Because we're using a trial, I don't care. If you are behind a proxy or firewall, this would be the place to set that up. If you want to change around how the script editor and its colors and fonts look, the editor tab is the place to do that. I don't. Languages, I never have to come in here and change things. I really don't. Dialog templates, once again, I never have to come in here and change things. But here are all the different dialogues you can work with that it ships with. We'll be talking about some of them in this series. FTP site profiles. Never have used this, so I have no idea what that does. I'll have to look it up in the documentation. And certificate profiles. That has to do with your code signing. I never code sign my stuff because I'm too cheap for that. And most of my stuff is internal use anyway, so they know where it came from. So, but we've talked about the preferences. We've talked about getting help inside the application. If you've got a PDF viewer, I've actually taken the manual and I've put it on my iPhone in the PDF form, so that way I can work with it. But if the manual, if the learning setup builder, if any of those resources fail to help you and you've got a question you just can't answer, obviously if your active support plan after you've bought it, or if you are trying it out, you can email them at support@lendersoft.com and they'll be glad to help you out. Or you can chuck it up to the community by going to lendersoft.com/forums. Don't quote me on that. Let's see if I did that right. Yes. And you do have to register to post here. I might be wrong about that. Let's find out. Will it let me? Oh, it will let me post a new thread, maybe. Yes, it will. You just have to pass a CAPTCHA. So, but yes, this is a great little community here. I have gotten so much help, and one of the people that works for Lendersoft actually constantly monitors this and is always answering questions, and it's a really nice place to get answers. So we've done a little bit of IDE overview. We've done, in this video, we've looked at the IDE. We've installed SetupBuilder. We've installed all the supporting documentation that we'd like, including some example projects that we can look at. We've downloaded the trial version, and we have done everything we need to do. So now I can safely close out this video and this virtual machine, because in the next video we are going to be building the installer I showed you in the first video from scratch. All right, so I will see you in the next one when we actually start building this thing.